Dirshu Amud Yomi. Today we're doing Daf Chaf Amud Bet. We're still in Sivan Kuf Lamed Zayin. Very quickly, I want to begin in Maran HaShulchan Aruch on Daf Chaf Amud Aleph. Im karak ehad shene pesukim tzarich lahazor velikrot. If by an aliyah only 2 pesukim were read, we know we need a minimum of 3 pesukim. If only 2 pesukim were read, you have to redo the aliyah. What does it mean you have to redo the aliyah? That if the ole still did not make the after beracha Abba Yonatan lanu et Torato Torat Emet, and they realized the mistake, even if they close the Sefer Torah, you add 1 pasuk. However, if the ole already made the bracha, the after bracha of Asher Natan lanu et Torato Torat Emet, an entirely new aliyah has to be created, and the ole makes the bracha before and after the aliyah, and obviously a minimum of 3 pesukim is read. V'im lo kar'u ben sheloshtan ela tish'a pesukim. What if you have a case where you had 3 aliyot? It's Shabbat, it's minha of Shabbat, or Monday or Thursday. So you had 3 aliyot, and a minimum of 9 pesukim was read. Shlosha lekol ehad. 9 pesukim were read with a minimum of 3 pesukim by each aliyah. Enam tzrichim lahazor velikro ur'aya ledavar parashat Amalek. According to Maran HaShulchan Aruch, even though we are supposed to read a minimum of altogether 10 pesukim, if only 9 pesukim were read with a minimum of 3 pesukim by each aliyah, we do not need to go back according to Maran HaShulchan Aruch. What's the proof to this? The proof is by the parasha of Amalek. We read the parasha of Amalek on the morning of Purim, and the parasha of Amalek is only 9 pesukim. Therefore, we see from there, in a case where we only read 9 pesukim with a minimum of 3 pesukim by each aliyah, even though it's not 10, we can rely on that kriyat Torah of only 9 pesukim. Lehalacha, a person should be machmir, a kahal should be machmir in a case where they only read 9 pesukim divided into 3 pesukim per aliyah, that they should read another 3 pesukim. Even on Purim, we are mahmir. Purim parashat of Amalek is only 9 pesukim. We are mahmir to double up the last pasuk so that we could have altogether 10 pesukim. In any case, if this happened, once again, by Shabbat, by Mincha, or by Monday or Thursday, we are mahmir. Even though Maran HaShulchan Aruch says it's okay b'di avad, and we are mahmir that 3 more pesukim should be read without a beracha before or after. Aval im kar'u pachot mitish'a tzrichim lahazor velikrot. If less than 9 pesukim were read, you need to go back and create a new aliyah. We're going to explain what that means in the Mishnah Brura. Parashat Amalek. Tekula ena ela tisha pesukim. The entire parasha of Amalek is only 9 pesukim. Vekevan dehatam korin lecha techila tisha. Since by the parasha of Amalek, since on Purim morning lecha techila, we only read 9 pesukim. Bish'ar yamim yotzina kol panim bedi abad betisha. We learn from the parashat of Amalek that's read Purim morning that if you did not read, since over there it's only 9 pesukim, we learn from there that if in any other case, in any other scenario, Minha of Shabbat, Monday and Thursday, you only read a minimum, you only read 9 pesukim and not 10, Bedi Avad, it's okay, and we only need 10 lechatechila. ובביאור הגר"א וכן בתשובת פנים מאירות חולקים על זה. The Gra and the Panim Me'irot argue on this opinion. ודעתם דעשרה הוא לעיכובה. Asara is not just lechatchila, le'ikuva. You have to have a minimum of altogether 10 pesukim. ובפחות מזה חוזר ומברך, ובפחות מזה חוזר ומברך וקורא. And with less, if a kahal read less than 10 pesukim, you need to go back and create an entirely new aliyah with the blessing before and after. ונראה דאף לדעה ראשונה, טוב שיקראו בציבור על כל פנים בלא ברכה ot shlosha pesukim. And even according to the first opinion, that bedi avad, if you read altogether 9 pesukim, with a minimum of 3 pesukim by each aliyah, even though bedi avad it's okay, it is proper for the tzibur to go back and read 3 more pesukim without a bracha. This is what the Sfaradim do halacha lema'aseh, like we said, even though the Shulchan Aruch says that if only 9 pesukim were read with a minimum of 3 pesukim by each aliyah, even though Maran said it's okay, halacha lema'aseh, it is proper to be strict and to create a new aliyah with 3 additional pesukim without a bracha before or after. פחות מתשעה, אבל אם קראו פחות מתשעה צריכים לחזור ולקרות. What does it mean פחות מתשעה? היינו, שקראו כל אחד 3 פסוקים. You had 3 aliyot. It's either Shabbat by Mincha, Monday or Thursday. Each aliyah got 3 pesukim. אלא שבסך הכל לא היה כי אם 8 pesukim. But altogether you only had 8 pesukim. How could you have a case of 3 pesukim by each oleh and you have 3 olim, yet you only have 8 pesukim? כגון שהשלישי קרא פסוק אחד מהשני שלפניו. The third aliyah, the third person to go up, read 1 pasuk from the previous aliyah and added on 2 pesukim. So even though you have 3 pesukim by each aliyah, it doesn't come out to 9, it comes out to 8. Va'afilu hachi lo yatsa. Even though that technically you have 3 pesukim by each aliyah, we are not yotze de kriya in this way. Di'ima shelishi lo kara kim shne pesukim, kevar ashmo'inan beresh ha'seif de lo yatsa. Di'ima shelishi, because this has to be the scenario. Because if you have a scenario of less than 9 pesukim, we already learned that you can't have an aliyah with less than 2 pesukim, with less than 3 pesukim. Since you can't have an aliyah with less than 3 pesukim, it has to be that the case, that the scenario Maran Shulchan Aruch is talking about of less than 9 pesukim. Why would Maran be talking about this if in any case you need a minimum of 3 pesukim by each aliyah? It must be you do have 3 pesukim by each aliyah here, except that by 1 aliyah, for example by Shelishi, 1 pasuk was borrowed from the previous aliyah. In other words, you read a pasuk that you already read in a previous aliyah, and you added 2 pesukim. In that case, so here we have a case where I do have 3 pesukim by each aliyah, but I have less than 9 pesukim because 1 of the pesukim was read twice. In that case, you are not yotzeh. You have to create, if already he made the oleh made the after beracha, you have to create a new aliyah with 3 pesukim with a bracha before and after. ויש אומרים דיצה בדיעבד, כיוון שעל כל פנים קראו כל אחד 3 פסוקים. However, according to the Sfaradim, like we just said, in a case where you really read 8 pesukim, but you have 3 pesukim by each aliyah. How do you have 3 pesukim by each aliyah if you really only read 8 pesukim? Because 1 pasuk you doubled up on, you read it twice, or you read it twice, once by 1 aliyah, then again by the other aliyah. That does not count. You need to create a new aliyah with a bracha before and after with 3 pesukim. Let's go to Seif Hey. Im kara parashat para. If you're holding by parashat para, upasak, and you concluded the reading of parashat para by the pasuk velager hagar betocham, velager hagar betocham, vegalal sefer Torah, and you rolled up the sefer Torah already, hozer upoteach umatchil merosh parasha. Ad titma ad ha'arev umvarech lefanea ul achareha. If we're going to see more in the Mishnah Brura exactly what Maran Shulchan Aruch means, but in general, if Parashat HaPara was not read properly, you did not read all the way until titma ad ha'arev, rather you stopped by the pasuk velager hagar betocham, that does not count, that is not considered like you read Parashat Para. And if the oleh already made the after beracha, you need to read it again with the bracha before and after. Let's see in the Mishnah Brura. Vegalal sefer Torah. You read from the beginning of Parashat Para, but you stopped. You concluded the reading early. For example, at Velager Hagar Betocham. Vegalal Sefer Torah, and you rolled up the Sefer Torah. Veharbe Aharonim Hiskimu Degalal Lav Dafka. It doesn't necessarily mean, the case is not necessarily that the Sefer Torah was already rolled up. Ela ha'ikar talui be'im berach beracha aharona. The main point is, if you did not read Parashat Para all the way to the end, and you stop by the pasuk v'lager hagar betocham, and the ole made the after bracha already, at that point, Parashat Para does not count. It was not done properly, and you have to reread it. You have to create a new aliyah with a bracha before and after. I'm going to read it. I'm going to just read the point. The point is not that the Sefer Torah was already rolled up. That's not the main point. The main point is that the Ole already made the after bracha, and they did not read all the pesukim that have to do with Parashat Para. Ve'im lo berach, if he did not yet make the after bracha, אף על פי שגלה לספר תורה, חוזר וקורא את המותר בלא ברכה לפניה. If this mistake was caught, that they stopped at the wrong pasuk, they stopped too early, they stopped v'lager hagar betocham, and this was caught before the oled, the person who's up there, made the after beracha, then all they have to do, even if the Sefer Torah was rolled up, even if it was closed, the Sefer Torah, all you have to do is continue reading without a new bracha before the aliyah, or rather after you are mashlim, after you read all the pesukim that you were supposed to, then the olim makes the after bracha that he was supposed to anyways. Yud Het and the Mishnah Brura. מראש הפרשה, חוזר ומתחיל מראש הפרשה, והדלא סגי שיתחיל ממקום שפסק מתחילה. Perhaps you will say, why does a person, the Mishnah Brura is addressing, why do we make him go back all the way to the beginning of Parashat Para? Why can't we just create a new aliyah and he begins from those pesukim that he omitted? This, that it's not enough that he just goes back to where he ended. Since they did not read the parasha properly in the way the Chachamim instituted it, en kan kriya. It's as if there was no kriya here. It's as if Parashat Para was not read. Ve'af al piken hiskimu haronim di'im dileg eze pasuk eno hozer. With this said, if let's say he did not stop too early, that not the scenario of the Shulchan Aruch that he stopped v'lager hagar betocham. How let's say that a pasuk was omitted from Parashat Para. If just one pasuk was omitted, meaning he began Parashat Para at the proper pasuk and he ended Parashat Para at the proper pasuk, atitma ad ha'arev, or he just missed, he omitted one pasuk, he does not go back. In any case, Parashat Para is read on a Shabbat. In any case, it's going to be read on its respective Shabbat. Similarly to what we say of the Kriyat Torah that we do on Yom Tov, that in any case, it's not as hamud as the Kriyat Torah of Shabbat, because these parashiot that we read on the Mo'adim, the Kriyat Torah of the Mo'adim, the Kriyat Torah of Parashat Para, in any case will be read on a Shabbat, on a Shabbat during the year. Achen kol ze dafka in dileg mi pesukim she'ena me'ikar chovat hayom. However, this only applies when a pasuk is omitted that you don't have to go back by Parashat Para. This only applies if you omitted a pasuk that doesn't have to do with the essential requirement of the day. Dehainu ad v'lager hagar betocham. Aval im dileg meikar chovat hayom. But if a pasuk, even one pasuk, was omitted from Parashat Para that has to do with the essential requirement of the day, he schemed be'eliyah rabba de hozer. The Eliyah rabba agrees that you have to go back. Uchmo shenit ba'el le'el b'mishnah brura seif katan yud aleph le'inyan pesukei korban musaf. So not only do you have to go back if you concluded Parashat Para too early, for example, V'lager agar betocham, so too you have to go back and create an aliyah if you omitted a pasuk from Parashat Para that has to do with the essential requirements of the day. And in that case, in both cases, whether you ended too early, like Maran Shulchan Aruch says, V'lager agar betocham, or you missed a pasuk, a critical pasuk that has to do with the essential requirements of the day, you have to go back and create a new aliyah with a beracha. Se'iv Vav, Hakore batorah rishon v'kara hasheni ma shekara harishon. Let's say you have a case, you have a scenario where someone got an aliyah la Torah. Everything was done properly. Then there was another person called up to the Torah. And by that second aliyah, by that next aliyah, what was read was you read what you read in the previous aliyah. What's the halacha? Im hosif al ma shekara harishon shlosha pesukim o afilu shnaim b'makom delo efshar. If even though you read from the aliyah of the previous ole, if you added 3 pesukim, or if you added only 2 pesukim in a case where it's not possible to add in more than 2 pesukim, oto sheni ole min haminyan. That second aliyah counts towards the aliyot, the obligation of the aliyot of that day. Once again, if by an aliyah you read the same pesukim as you did in the previous aliyah, if you did that, but you added 3 pesukim, or you only added 2 pesukim because it was not possible, we'll discuss in the Mishnah Berurah, it was not possible to add more than 2 pesukim, that aliyah is counted as the aliyot of the obligation of the day. V'im lav eno ole min haminyan. But if all you did was repeated the pesukim that were said in the previous aliyah, it doesn't count as an aliyah, chutz mipareh hechad mishum delo efshar, except for on Hol HaMoed Sukkot. We'll talk right now on Eretz Yisrael for a moment. On Hol HaMoed Sukkot, where it's impossible to add any new pesukim because the pesukim that have to do with each day, with the korban of each day, there's only 3 pesukim. Therefore, we just keep on rereading them. We read them by Kohen, and then they are repeated for Levi, Yisrael, and Revi'i. In that case, where it's impossible, there are no other pesukim to add, talking about Chol HaMoed Sukkot, then that's fine. But otherwise, the aliyah does not count unless you have altogether 3 pesukim. They are either 3 new pesukim, or you were only able to read 2 new pesukim, but you added on to the pesukim that were already read. Let's go to Vav in the Mishnah Berurah Harishon. V'davka di avad. This is all talking b'di avad. אבל לכתחילה אין כדאי שיקרא למפרע מהפסוקים הקודמים אפילו אם ירצה להוסיף עליהן כמה. לכתחילה, you may not read, when you have a proper aliyah, an aliyah that's from the chovah, that's from the obligation of the day, לכתחילה, you should not read pesukim from the previous aliyah, rather you should be careful to only read new pesukim. However, with that said, יש נוהגים בפרשת בחוקותיי, קוראים לעולה תוכחה 3 פסוקים קודם כדי להתחיל בדבר טוב. On פרשת בחוקותיי, the aliyah of the tochecha, of the rebuke, that we want to start off with something positive, so we give him 3 pesuk, so we start 3 pesukim that were already previously read, that are more positive, and then we go into the aliyah. Av shekeva kara shlishi otana pesukim, even though the 3 pesukim that we are adding in were already read in the previous aliyah, but since this person is getting an aliyah of tochecha, we want to start at the very least, from somewhere positive. Therefore, even though we are not supposed to, when by an aliyah by an aliyah that's from the obligation of the day, we are not supposed to read pesukim that were already read in the previous aliyah. By Parashat Bechukotai, it's an exception. By the aliyah of the Tochecha, in order that we should start with something positive. Shlosha pesukim b'makom she'efshar, when we can add on. If, once again, the case is talking about where by an aliyah you are reading pesukim from the previous aliyah that were already read, as long as you added 3 pesukim, even though you're not supposed to do it this way, it's okay. B'makom she'efshar, where you're able to add. O afilu shnayim, where you're able to add 3 pesukim. O afilu shnayim. Hainu shehosif shene pesukim al pasuk echad shekara mima shelefanav. What did you do? You added 2 pesukim to a pasuk that you already read before. So you read the pasuk again and you added 2 new pesukim. כמו שאנו נוהגים בראש חודש, שהלוי מתחיל פסוק שקרא הכהן, ואינו מוסיף רק 2 פסוקים. When do we do this throughout the year? We do this on Rosh Chodesh. The Levi, by the Aliyah of Levi, we read 1 pasuk that we already read by the Kohen, and then we add on 2 pesukim. Because it's impossible, because we don't have any other choice. Once again, we are talking about in a case where it's impossible to add on 3 new pesukim. You can only add on 2 new pesukim, and you have to reread at least 1 pasuk from the previous aliyah. Then in that case, it's okay. כמו שהתברר בהלכות ראש חודש. במקום דלא אפשר, היינו דלא אפשר לקרוא 3, כי אם 2 משום דסליק עניינה. What does it mean that you're not able to add pesukim? What? There's a lack of pesukim in the Torah. It means you can't add in 3 new pesukim. You can only add in 2 new pesukim because the subject matter ends. It doesn't continue. So in a case where the subject matter, the reason I can only add in 2 new pesukim and not 3 pesukim, then you are allowed to do that in a case where the subject matter ends. And my only option is to add on 2 new pesukim and reread 1 pasuk. Di'i lo efshar klal, if the definition, if the understanding of the words of the Shulchan Aruch is I'm not able to add on any pesukim, haveh dumya de parei achag. That already you get into a situation of, for example, Chol HaMoed, you get into a situation of the parei of the Chag of Sukkot, where all you have is a few pesukim to read. Over there, I'm talking now, let's say in Eretz Yisrael, there's only 3 pesukim, so the Kohen reads it, then Levi, Yisrael, and Revi'i all reread it. But Mishnah Berurah is pointing out it's not that that's not the case, because if that's the case, that's what Maran Shulchan Aruch is talking about at the end when he says Miparei hechag mishum delo efshar. What does delo efshar mean here? Or afilu shnayim b'makom delo efshar. It means that because of the subject matter ends, all I can do is add on 2 pesukim. Eno ole mina minyan. If you're not able to add in a regular case, if you just reread the pesukim from the previous aliyah, even if you read 3 pesukim, but you read them, they were already read by the previous aliyah, and you don't add, eno ole mina minyan. Milashon ze mashma de'en isur badavar. From the lashon, from the language that the Shulchan Aruch uses, it seems that there's no isur. It's not asur. De'en isur badavar lahazor velikot ma shekara ha'ole shelefanav. It's not asur. Just we don't do it. Ela she'en ole leminyana keruim. It seems from the lashon of the Maran Shulchan Aruch that it's not an isur. Just it doesn't count towards the aliyah that we are obligated to count on that day. The azil leshitate besiman resh pei bet seif bet. Vain sham beramad deholek alze. According to the Rama, no, it's asur to do it. According to Maran Shulchan Aruch, the Mishnah Berurah is deriving that it's not asur, just it doesn't count. According to the Rama, it seems that not only does it does not count, it is asur to do. On Shabbat, let's say you already called up your 7 aliyot, and you're doing mosif. So the halacha is as follows. The ideal is, if you know you're going to have mosifim, the ideal is even by the mosifim to add in to read 3 new pesukim. Me'ikar hadin, if you already called up 7 people, you can reread pesukim by the mosifim. However, the ideal is to read 3 new pesukim even by mosif. Even if you fulfilled your obligation of the aliyot of the day, for example on Shabbat, even if you already fulfilled the obligation of 7 aliyot, if you're doing a mosif, it is best to add in 3 new pesukim. Next, you are even allowed, even if you add in 3 pesukim, you are allowed to reread, to repeat pesukim, meaning you repeat pesukim that were already said, and then you add in 3 pesukim. You could also do that. Mi'ikar hadin, if also the third option is that if you called up 7 aliyot, if you already had 7 aliyot for a mosif, you are allowed to repeat pesukim. Just 1 second. Sorry, lechatchila though you shouldn't. The option that I gave, lechatchila, even by a mosif, even if you called up sheva aliyot, you fulfilled your obligation of shiva aliyot, lechatchila, even by a mosif, you should read 3 new pesukim. B'di'avad, you are allowed to repeat pesukim that were already read by a mosif. If you already called up 7 aliyot, b'di'avad, you are allowed to repeat pesukim that were already read in a mosif. However, lechatechila, you should not do so. You should do it in a way where you have 3 new pesukim. Either you read the aliyah 3 new pesukim, or you repeat pesukim that were read and you add in 3 new pesukim. That's also an option. But however, you should not repeat pesukim that were already read even by a mosif. B'di'avad, a person has to rely on if they choose to do so, if they have no other choice.